He's a criminal the likes of which you have never seen. In a bad time, he was the worst.
I'm gonna love running this place.
But in the year 2032...
This morning, Simon Phoenix escaped from this cryo facility. We are, quite frankly, not equipped to deal with the situation.
amidst a world of peace and calm...
We're police officers. We're not trained for this kind of violence.
How was the fiendish Simon Phoenix apprehended back in the 20th?
In the end, it took just one man. John Spartan.
You mean the Demolition Man?
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
What's up, super spreaders?
This week, we'll be discussing the science fiction classic, Demolition Man, starring Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Sandra Bullock. It's an all-star cast. Wouldn't you agree? For goodness sake.
I would agree it's an all-star cast. How about that? I'll throw you that vote.
That's something. Had you ever heard of this or seen it before?
Oh, are you kidding me? I have seen this before. Faux show.
And it's a horror show? It's
a horror show. Siskel and Ebert from their graves gave it 2 middle fingers.
That's a travesty. I find it pleasant and enjoyable. So there you have it.
I will tell you, Sylvester Stallone never looked so good. Because he wasn't overly bulked out. He was like really tight. He was like a trim, tight, kind of muscular. And I
This is late model.
It's late model. He doesn't look quite as strokey. I don't know if he had plastic surgery or whatever. He definitely looks better than Rocky. He's very tight. So, in the Rambo ones, he was all bulky. But I looked him up. It says he's 5'10". I think that's a lie.
That's a damn lie.
That's a damn lie. He's about 5'7", wouldn't you say?
Yeah, at least.
He is a small fry for sure.
Yeah. A small fry. Well, that's just how it works. In Hollywood, they're all dwarves. No offense to our dwarfish listeners.
I don't know, how did that get started? Like in the 1920s, they hired dwarfish actors and then they just never moved beyond that?
I honestly, I don't know what it's all about, but all like Tom Cruise, all those dudes, Robert Downey Jr., I mean, Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, they're all super tiny. Who knows what's going on in the world?
Or is it that we are so freakishly tall that our judgment is skewed? I'm Googling, what's the average height?
I think 5'7" is short, no matter how you slice it. I do.
I'm putting in American man.
I think women who are 5'7" are probably not that short, but men who are 5'7" are short.
All right, so this when I was in high school, it was shorter. So Americans are getting taller. So the average height for men in America is 5'9".
Okay.
Does that sound right to you?
Sure.
What is that?
No, I think that sounds right. But my thing is that if anybody is shorter than me, I think that they're short. Like in real life, like if it's hard for me to judge.
I cannot judge. I am very accurate on people my height or taller. People shorter than me, I don't know if you're 5'9" or 4'11". Literally, unless you're biting my ankle. I was literally talking to my friend Monica, who told me she was 5'4". I'm like, what? I thought you were like 5'7" or 5'8" or something.
For our listeners who don't know us, I'm about 6'2". Aaron's about 6'3". So
I thought you were 6'3".
I don't know. I think I'm maybe 6'2.5". I think you're taller than I am.
You're getting the osteo, or you getting the curve back?
A little bit of something. A little bit of curvature of the spine. So this is we're going a long diatribe on how short people are. Very sad. Why don't you give us your 5-second synopsis of the Demolition Man?
All right, we're in future greater. I'm going to call it Greater Los Angeles.
Yes.
Because Los Angeles has merged with apparently all of Southern California.
Yeah.
And so it's the future. there's no death penalty to like freeze people and program them. So when people come up for their parole, they take them out of these ice cubes where they're in these freakishly strange positions.
Yes.
And you know, they've been programmed to do something else. So anyway, one bad dude, Wesley Snipes, comes and now he has superpowers. He knows how to do everything. He escapes, which made no sense to me. Well, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So anyway, so he escapes, goes on a killing thing. He knows stuff he shouldn't know. So by now the police are so passive. They're more like life coaches, so they have no idea how to handle real criminals because there are no more criminals. A crime is swearing. A crime is eating French fries, eating things that are bad for you. So they are no way have any ability to deal with this. So they come up with the idea, you catch an old criminal by defrosting an old cop. So they have some kind of dirty, hairy dude from the past, the one who caught Wesley Snipes originally, or the one who caught Phoenix originally.
Or Wesley Snipes. Yeah, some legal troubles.
So they defrost Stallone. So of course he can't control himself. He keeps swearing, ping, 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 ping.
He can't control.
You get a demerit. Or I don't even. And if you swear like 3 times, the police come and I don't know what the hell they do.
They arrest you.
They arrest you, and then what?
I don't know.
We don't know. Talk to you. So anyway, you're trying to figure out what Wesley Snipes' goal is. It turns out that like the king of Los Angeles, who set up all these restrictions after like the crime and the earthquake of the past, there's always some disaster that befalls California.
Right.
And then we need a strong man dressed as frickin' Obi-Wan Kenobi to come in and grab power and set it all up to make this utopian world. And by utopian, you mean you have 0 choices. So.
It's a benign dictatorship in a sense, right?
Is it? Because then we learn there's this underground group of people living in the sewers who would rather eat garbage and live free, die young, than to be oppressed. With Dennis Leary smoking 20 packs of cigarettes a day. I want to smoke 50 Marlboros while I eat an all pork fat sandwich, and that's my God-given right.
Right, that's a Dennis Leary rant.
So, anyway, what happens is what exactly you think is gonna happen. It never quite works out. The good guys win. The end. How's that?
Very good. Very good. Very succinct. Now, do you remember when you saw it the first time, and what were your initial thoughts back when you saw it? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I'm trying to think. I have a feeling I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I definitely saw it in the theater.
I think I saw it in the theater, and what blew my mind was the frickin' product placement.
Yes.
This is the pinnacle of in-your-face product placement. And product placement is where companies pay to get their products on screen.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just the grossest version of that, if at all possible. So they had a deal with GM and Taco Bell Corporation.
All restaurants are Taco Bell now in the future.
Taco Bell used that tagline and clips from the movie in their Taco Bell ads. Taco Bell and GM paid $15 million, and GM donated all those prototype cars to the movie. So every minute you're driving by a Taco Bell, there was the franchise war. I mean, it was just so in your face. In fact, it still drives me crazy.
It does
when
too.
we were watching, was it Tremors? When we were watching Tremors, did you notice Mother's cookies were in like every shot?
Yep. Oh yeah. Was it Mother's or was it Famous Amos? No.
It was Mother's, because I kept thinking I wanted some of those pink and white animal cookies.
That's right.
So anyway, it's gross, it's disgusting, and now I'm hyper aware. I mean, it kept building up over in Hollywood, and then it started to kind of, people got annoyed with it, I think, is what's happening, because I was sure as hell annoyed with it. So then that kind of started fading out a little bit, and they were less in their face about that.
Right.
But
Jesus.
I still am always looking. How many Cokes have I seen? How many Pepsis? How many times did they drive in by this or that? I mean, I understand that movies are expensive, but at least be freaking creative if you're going to do that.
I don't notice cars as much, although this one definitely made references to specific GMC cars or whatever it was. But yeah, the Taco Bell, I literally have a long discussion about Taco Bell. It was like, okay, do we need the discussion about how Taco Bell became the only restaurant that still exists in San Angeles in 2032 or whatever it was?
Exactly. It looked like a nice Taco Bell, and you know, I was all about Taco Bell until I realized they're donating to the Trump campaign.
The truth comes out. No, I saw this movie in the theaters. I remember I enjoyed it a lot even then. This was kind of like the last gasp of Stallone, because remember, Stallone was obviously very big in the 80s, right? Starting, in the late 70s with Rocky.
I like Nighthawks
with Rutger Hauer. You can't lose, and Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams.
Absolutely. You can, by the late 80s, Stallone, like, his star had started to fall.
Right.
So then in the early 90s, there was a couple kind of high-profile movies. He did Cliffhanger, which kind of brought him back up.
Cliffhanger was good.
Cliffhanger was good. It kind of brought him up, but then it was downhill again. Then it was doing like Judge Dredd and some other lousy things. So that by the late 90s, he was gone. He was basically straight to video Joe at that point.
I agree. Until the Expendables rolled him out again.
He started. He did the Expendables, but he also started rehashing like the latest Rocky movies again. They did like Rocky Balboa. They did Rambo, Lost in the Jungle, whatever that one was. Started rehashing those old characters.
I want Rambo versus Rocky. How about that one?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, I didn't see any of that crap. And you know what? I've never seen a Rambo movie.
First Blood is excellent. It's got Brian Dennehy. It's really it's kind of an interesting film. We're going to go off on a little side. First Blood is about like a Vietnam War veteran who's kind of pushed to the limit by some townies, essentially. And so it's much more of like talking about people's
like Walking
experience.
Tall or something. What is this? Or does he help in an Indian tribe? Or
no, it's not Billy Jack. It's much more like Vietnam veterans coming back and how they're treated, kind of thing.
Yeah.
By the second one, it's like now he's going to Vietnam to free the POWs. The third one, he's taking on Russia. So it's a whole different. The other ones are much more like he's a crazy Superman, whereas the first one is kind of it's a better film. It's much more of a low key kind of thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Shall we go right to our highlights? Do you want to go first?
No, I just want to say I have one highlight.
That is madness.
Okay.
First of all,
my favorite part in this movie is when they were talking about President Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yes.
And they went off on a whole riff about Schwarzenegger.
Well, didn't he used to be an actor?
He used to be an actor, yeah.
Yep.
Very funny, very funny. I like that. It kind of leads us into maybe an Expendables kind of situation. That's what it reminded me of.
Right. Well, I guess they have often kind of made references to each other. Because they were like friends in real life.
Yeah.
Like friendly rivals.
Right.
But they were constantly like in other movies, like Last Action Hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's a scene where his character's going around the video store. And you see it's like Terminator 2 starring Sylvester Stallone. And it's a picture of him. He's like, this was his best work ever. So it's like, yeah, they would make references to each other. But that was hilarious.
because they tried to make this like a comedy, but all those references to missaying quotes and stuff, I found stupid and dumb.
That you're right. That wasn't. You really matched his meat. Things like that. Take this job and shovel it. Yeah. Those were not the funny parts to me.
And I like Sandra Bullock, but I mean everything was just so hokey. Well, and this is Sandra Bullock before she's famous. The movie that made her famous came out a year later, and that was Speed. So this is unknown actress Sandra Bullock. She'd been in other like low profile things like Love Potion #9 or whatever. But this is the world meeting Sandra Bullock. I always liked Sandra Bullock. She always seemed like she'd be cool. She does a fine job, whatever. I have no issues with Sandra Bullock.
I have no issues as well. There's I mean I have obviously many highlights.
You go for it and I'll just knock them down. Let me get my baseball bat. I'm ready. Let's see. What's the first pitch?
I'm going chronologically. The scene opens with the horrifying dystopian future of 1996, where Los Angeles is a burning hellhole. It's like literally Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We're just like flames. And they like literally. So Simon Phoenix is Wesley Snipes. He's the gang leader, crime lord, who's just taken over huge swaths of Los Angeles, right? And he hijacked a bus full of passengers because even though the police don't come to Simon Phoenix's turf, the buses still do. They still travel, so he hijacks them. So John Spartan, Sylvester Stallone, goes in by himself to a warehouse and bungee jumps out of the helicopter onto the roof of the warehouse where the hostages are allegedly being kept. It is amazing. It is the opening scene was just like, who came up with this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, granted, in the 80s and 90s, it was commonplace for the hero to be like, no time for backup. I got to go in by myself. I know there's 40 criminals in there with machine guns. I got to handle it myself. But it just seems ridiculous in retrospect to like, no one would do that. That's impossible. But anywho, so the building's destroyed because John Spartan's nickname is the Demolition Man, which is kind of in there. Because
I mean, it's totally Dirty Harry.
It is.
Dirty Harry was always being fired, and everything's on fire, blowing up. But he did always saves the one person he was supposed to save.
Right, but it's even to a higher level because evidently, whenever he gets involved, buildings explode. Mm-hmm. Like he does. There's literally a funny moment where they're kind of looking at his highlights, where the reporter's like, how can you justify blowing up a $7 million mini mall to rescue a hostage whose ransom was only $25,000? So things go awry. The building explodes, and they discover, oh no, the bodies of all the hostages were in the building, and therefore now we've arrested Simon Phoenix, the maniac, but we're gonna have to arrest you as well. And that sets up how they're going in the future. Because now, in the future of 96, they've come up with this cryogenics thing. Where it's like, rather than go to prison, you strip bone naked, and they throw you in like a little, like an ice cube tray, and freeze you solid for however long your sentence is. So
may I say something? Please. Which makes no freaking sense. Because if while you're frozen, you get reprogrammed.
Yes.
Couldn't they just do that in an afternoon?
Yes.
Then you don't have to frickin' store 1 million people.
Right.
You know?
This is true.
If you're frozen, there is no passage of time. So what do you care?
Right. Why does it have to be 70 years? Why can't it be an afternoon?
Exactly, because it really makes no difference because you're asleep and then you wake up and things are different. That's the only thing.
Right.
Continue.
Explain it. But again, this is the future of 96. Now, this movie came out in 93. So we're talking 3 years later. Los Angeles is now a dystopian hellhole. And we have this technology where we can reprogram people's brain with a little chip you stick on the side of their head. And we can cryogenically freeze you and bring you back, evidently. Okay, good. This is all important information, right? So now, okay, smash cut, it's now 2032. And it, again, like we said, it's basically super clean. There's so little crime that the cops are basically wimps. They don't know what to do. They arrest people for cursing, like you said. They arrest people for putting salt on their food, essentially. Well,
Lord, how could they possibly be eating at Taco Bell then? That's the first ingredient is salt.
She literally says no salt, no fat, nothing spicy. And yet, 3 things that they list.
And yet there's still fat people rolling around.
There are. Okay, so smash cut. So now Simon Phoenix is up for parole. Here's my question.
Yes.
How is Simon Phoenix up for parole before Sylvester Stallone? Sylvester Stallone was convicted of involuntary manslaughter because he blew up the building recklessly when there were 30 hostages, allegedly, right? You later find out in the movie that they were already dead. You killed them, right? Based upon Simon Phoenix's testimony?
Yeah. Of course, it makes no damn sense.
So he's sentenced to prison, but Simon Phoenix, who they literally list his list of crimes, it's all rape, murder, assault,
rape.
Somehow he's up for parole first, though. How did that happen? This is a problem. And what's even parole if you've been frozen solid for 40 years? You know what I mean? Are you rehabilitated now?
Yeah, I mean, there's problems here. There's some problems here. And why did he have to flip out when they defrosted him? They were going to release him. Why couldn't he have just walked out and disappeared?
These are good. Well, and that's the other thing. Okay, so the warden basically
Otto Preminger. He looks like. Oh no, that's the other. The warden, is his name Waylon Smithers?
William Smithers.
I was like, what?
Okay, exactly. And not Otto Preminger either, by the way.
Otto Preminger is like the chief of police. He practically has a monocle.
Oh, sweet Jesus. Exactly.
Nobody knows who Otto Preminger is.
Nobody under than 70. If you haven't seen Sunset Boulevard, you don't know what we're talking about. But you're right. They're doing the whole parole thing. And I guess because Wesley Snipes is kind of a jerk to him, kind of gives him a little sass, he's like, let's make this quick. You're going back in the freezer or whatever.
Then why did you defrost him to begin with?
Right. If it's already a predetermined conclusion, then what is a parole hearing anyway? Isn't there usually a parole board? I don't know. I'm not an expert in the future expert. So he escapes and goes on his rampage. The funniest stuff to me was the kind of dialogue, the slang that they use, because again, it goes from dystopian hellhole to kind of campy fun is what they were going for in the future of 2032. Because there was a scene, one highlight that I thought was hilarious is when Simon Phoenix goes to the museum to steal the.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. They're trying to figure out what he's doing. The computer says he's going to set up a crime family and start trying to sell drugs or something. And Stallone's like, no. He's going for a gun, pure and simple. That's when the chief says the only place he can even view a gun is in a museum. So then it's smash
and they're
cut.
Apparently loaded and ready to go.
Yes, right. There's a whole wing just called the Armory, and is there any museum that's broken down like that? I mean, here's just the guns. Here's the guns
I'm sure
section.
in some natural history museum or something. I think I've seen in some museums, like when you're dealing with war. I went to the Gordon Highlander Museum. I'm trying to think if they had weapons in there. I think they might have.
Wait a minute. The Gordon Highlander Museum?
Yes, in Scotland.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was what is it, Connor McLeod or somebody.
Connor McLeod was there. He shook my hand, and we had a cuppa.
A cuppa, exactly. Oh god. So he's like trying to break into the glass, and one thing that's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious is that Wesley Snipes and Stallone are dropping F-bombs constantly, and you always hear the like the little alarm go off. Yeah. You've been fined.
Spinning
one credit.
Out a ticket. One credit.
Throughout the movie, like early on, they kind of make a reference to it. They're like, well, what's this? Later, they just ignore it, and you just keep hearing it happening in the background. This movie is really, I mean, it's typical action violence,
right?
But it's not bloody or gory or anything like that. The only reason this is an R-rated movie is because they drop
of the F-bombs.
They drop 40 F-bombs for comedic value. So he's trying to smash his way into the plexiglass to get to the guns just by punching them. And a security guard walks up and says, "Mellow citizen, what seems to be your boggle?"
I'm gonna work that in. Hey, Skillet, the next time I talk to you, I'm gonna slip boggle in.
What seems to be your boggle?
Skillet, what's your boggle?
So Snipes literally throws the guy through the glass to get to the guns.
Yeah, and how is that a thing? I can't karate chop through this, but I just throw a dude at it and the whole thing shatters?
I guess it was like, if you weigh like 200 pounds, maybe if I just throw 200 pounds through this thing, it will shatter. Who knows? Who knows?
I know.
And then he's like, isn't there supposed to be phaser guns in the future?
That's right.
So he smashed.
Beat me up, Scotty.
Exactly. So he smashes through like another display, shouting, "What seems to be your boggle?" And then he's like, picks up the gun, and he's like, "Does this need batteries? Where's the Radio Shack, motherfucker?" Radio Shack no longer exists. So this is really the future. So there you have it.
He's going to need to look for a Fry's now.
Right, Fry's. Sweet Jesus.
Do Fry's still exist?
I think so.
I'm not sure.
There's no more Circuit City, though. There's still Best Buy, I think. Very
yes,
sad.
there's still a Best Buy. Or Worst Buy, as we used to call it.
Worst Buy. So that was, to me, most of the funny stuff were the kind of the comedic dialogue that went along with that. There's another scene. Go ahead.
Almost said Schwarzenegger. I believe old Rambo here definitely has the better lines. Sandra Bullock's lines, they made her a ditz and a ding dong, and her lines were stupid.
Her lines were not as good.
He had the better lines for sure. And so did Wesley. One of my favorite things is where they're eating the rat burgers.
Yes. Do you see any cows around here?
Yeah, do you see the cat? And the lady's speaking Spanish to him, and he's answering in Italian. I thought that was kind of funny.
Right. She's like, gracias, and he drops prego. Guess whatever's clever.
Whatever's clever, but I thought that was a good scene.
That was a good scene. There's a scene where Stallone has now been reinstated with the San Angeles Police Department. Because like you said, San Diego, Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara is now one giant city, I guess.
Metroplex. I think is the word.
They don't have guns in the future, the cops. Basically, they have these like rods. They call them glow rods. And he's like, "What's this?" He's like, "It's a glow rod. It's what we got." He's like, "Well, let's see." Which is it to some random. And the guy like collapses on the ground. And he's like, "I guess it works."
But here's my question. Who are they using that on, since the worst thing that can happen is bootleg salt or swearing?
If you're dropping F-bombs, I think
they're going to give you the tap out. Is that
That's it?
Think about what you've done.
You're dead meat. That's all she wrote. Let's see. What else? Oh, the three
Who
seashells.
did they call? Who did they call the evil Mr. Rogers?
His name is Raymond Cocteau.
Oh, that's right. The head dude. I just had evil Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is the other thing. So they talk about how crime and disease, and there was the big one of 2010. So the whole, I guess, California was about to slip into the ocean until this guy, Dr. Raymond Cocteau, basically changed all of society. I mean, I'm assuming he's like the mayor, but they act like he's the emperor. You know what I mean? We don't know what's going on outside of the city.
He's the emperor and savior.
Right. So, I mean, this is still America, isn't it? I mean, they don't make any reference to anything outside of the city. So we don't know if everywhere else is just destroyed.
Right.
Because it's a total, like, there's no constitution here. Basically, he sat up and wiped away all these rights to create this safe space, evidently. They don't go deep into it. But that's the thing.
No.
It's like, really, you think Wesley Snipes is the villain? And he is. But Raymond Cocteau, spoiler alert, is another villain. Because that's kind of the surprise. The reason why Wesley Snipes escapes from prison with all these new skills and abilities is because Raymond Cocteau, who invented this, the cryogenic freezing thing, although he doesn't seem quite old enough to have like done all that, which can give you special skills that's part of your rehabilitation with that little chip they put on your head. He freed him by giving him the secret password to escape from the prison or whatever, to murder the leader of the underground people, the Scraps. Because, like you said, most people live above doors wearing kind of quasi-Japanese attire, being kind of wimpy. Are you cutting things? What is happening?
Oh, yeah, I am sorry.
Sweet Jesus.
I didn't think you could hear that.
Some people...
I was trying to multitask.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Some people, like led by Dennis Leary, are like, we would rather live underground in squalor and possibly starve than give up our freedoms, essentially.
Don't be afraid of your freedom.
So he gets Simon Phoenix and literally implants the desire to murder Edgar Friendly as Dennis Leary. That's what it's about. So he's really the Raymond Cocteau's another bad guy.
He was smart enough to also implant the thing where he can't kill him.
Right.
But he was not so smart to do the same with every other a-hole that they revive for the crime squad.
That is correct. Essentially, Simon Phoenix says, yes, I will murder this man for you, but I'll need some help. Here are some 5 guys that I need you to thaw out. That will be my henchmen or whatever.
Yeah, because Simon Phoenix is kind of like not the last Joker, but maybe the Joker before that, where it's just kind of mindless chaos.
Right, he's basically nuts. He's nuts.
He's mental. He's clearly nuts, and it's just kill, destroy, kill, destroy. You would think that there has to be somebody else in an ice cube somewhere who's more of like perhaps former military, where you can just have an assassination because they just want the one guy.
Right.
It just seems that when you release chaos,
you can't control chaos.
You cannot control chaos.
Right.
And he proved again and again that he just waltzes in. And then what was the ultimate plan? So when they killed the underground, what did he think he was going to be able to do with Mr. Phoenix?
Put him back under? Who knows?
How? Who's going to capture him? That's what I mean.
Well, and if you murder the leader of the Scraps, do they just come above ground and like say, where's my kimono? I'm prepared to rejoin society. I mean, I don't know how it works.
It's possible that a movement could lose heart, but it's quite possible, as we've seen with many different groups historically, that someone else snaps up to take over the role. If you kill the president, does society collapse, or does the vice president become president? I mean,
that's the question, I guess.
You would have to kill everyone in the movement. And it seems like most citizens don't even know about the movement.
Well, and because it just seems very extreme. Because most of the time, all the scraps do is like spray some graffiti.
Yeah.
Right? At one point, they come out and try to rob the Taco Bell truck for food because they're starving. But other than that, it's just like he literally says they're graffiti and their noise pollution from their exploding devices because the little like graffiti thing, I guess, kind of explodes, but not in like a dangerous or violent way. It just makes a lot of noise. So that's
a violation.
It's a violation. It's very sad. It's hard to know. I mean, there's a lot going on here, shockingly enough. But I have to talk about the three seashells. Three seashells. At one point, after getting thawed out, John Spartan's like, I've got to go evacuate my bowels. But I went to the bathroom and there's no toilet paper there. Where's the toilet paper? They all start laughing at him. Yeah, back in the 20th, they used to use wads of crumpled tissue paper when they went to the bathroom. He doesn't know how to use the three seashells. So there's no explanation given, thankfully.
Well, that's another problem when you're dealing with essentially kind of time travelers is wouldn't you implant the current knowledge? It reminds me of like old Star Trek Next Generation where they end up bringing like people from the past. There was always something, or more primitive societies onto the ship.
Yeah.
And someone at least shows them what to do. I still don't know what you're supposed to do. I assume one shell is for scraping, and then what are the other two for? You just keep scraping, and then do you throw the seashells away and they're cleaned, or how do they seashells? Are we all sharing seashells?
These are all excellent questions. There's no great answer. Evidently, they said, not in the movie, but I guess the director or the writer said the way it works is you're supposed to use two of them like kind of chopsticks, where you reach in and pull out whatever it is you need to reach in and pull out.
Why are you pulling it out? And how do you use seashells as chopsticks? You mean like castanets?
Yes. And the third one is for scrape. This sounds horrible.
So it just sounds like Schwarzenegger took a big dump and then it's just over the place.
He's carrying a full
and everybody else is filthy as filthy can be.
Yes. So he went to the bathroom, did his business, realized there was no toilet paper, and then pulled his pants up and wandered around and said, "Hey, can you help me?" But that was another funny scene because he immediately goes to the machine that spits out your swearing ticket, your fine.
Oh yeah.
He goes up to start swearing into it, pulls all the paper out, and he goes, "I'll be right back."
I mean, I guess he could wash his ass in the sink, but who wants to walk in on that?
Sweet
I mean,
Jesus.
when I was in Europe, and I said, I understand you're supposed to wash your bits in a bidet. I understand that's its purpose, but it has no seat. What is the actual procedure? You know what I mean?
Yes.
What is the procedure? So, and I was told you do this for that, depending on what needs to be washed, you do this,
You don't leave your shitty seashells on the shelf next to the toilet, hopefully. I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
That was a tongue twister, too. The shitty seashells on the
He
shelf.
sells shitty seashells by the seashore.
It's something horrible. Something horrible. Sweet Jesus. Oh, God. So later in the movie, there's another highlight. I have a bunch of these. Basically says, "Hey, what would you say to us having sex?" And he's like, "Sounds good." But it's a weird... They don't do physical stuff anymore in the future. Even when they high five, it's kind of like your wax on.
It was like Brave New World, I think.
It is.
Remember Brave New World?
Absolutely. Why do you think her name is Lenina Huxley?
I kept thinking Huxley, and then her partner's name is Alfredo Garcia. Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
Huxley is obviously Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, but Lenina was the main character from Brave New World.
Oh my God, I read it in high school, so not so much.
There you go. I totally lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
Huxley, Brave New World. Sex!
Oh, yes.
Sex!
He's like kind of, because that's obviously very forward. She's like, "Hey," because up to this point they've been just colleagues. And she brings out this device and slaps it on his head. And they stand apart from each other. And evidently that kind of simulates some kind of sexual thing.
And she tosses him a towel.
For cleanup.
So they got towels, but no toilet paper.
Exactly. That makes no. At least you can throw some
Get your hands off my sex towel.
Here's the sex seashells. Use those. Anyway, so
you use them like a crab pincher. Thank you.
You pitch it exactly. He gets upset, takes them off, and he says, "Can't we just do it the old-fashioned way?" And she's enraged. How? Ew! What are you talking about? That's disgusting. Fluid transfer? She literally says, "That's disgusting." And he's like, she's like, "You talking about?" He's like, "I'm talking about sex. The wild mambo, the hunka chunka." Like, are these weren't terms? Ever? What are you talking about?
I don't know. That's maybe in Schwarzenegger's word. We'll have to ask Brigitte Nielsen next time we see her.
Yeah, next time we run into her, she can let us know. Sweet Jesus. Any other highlights before we move on with our lives?
Well, there's a cameo by Jesse Ventura in there.
Did
you see him?
It wasn't supposed to be a cameo. It was supposed to be a much larger part, but they cut it. So you see him like twice, yeah. And he has no lines. See him twice, he has no lines, but he's the one who shoots Dr. Cocktail later in the movie. So.
And Rob Schneider is in it, but it's uncredited. Is that because the movie came out and he's like, take my effing name off this SH? But based on his other movies, he should keep it on there. It's not like he's breaking records.
I don't know why he's uncredited. It is so bizarre. And he's not in that much of it. He's like in like 2 or 3 scenes from within like the police department headquarters, but he has lines. He says at one point, he's like, "We're police officers. We're not trained to deal with this kind of violence." Hilarious.
I'm looking up how tall Rob Schneider is.
Sweet Jesus. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, but this is an all-star cast. 5'3".
No, that doesn't shock me at all.
He is a sex dwarf. And yeah.
Good times.
Let me look through my notes, see if I have anything else. I think we covered it. It just seems so odd, like the overlord, the dude from Beetlejuice is the henchman.
Yes.
From for
Dr. Cocktail.
Cocteau, and they're all just full Japanese Star Wars style.
What would you say if I called you a brutish fossil from an era gratefully forgotten? I don't know.
My God.
Thank you. That was a funny line.
Before Schwarzenegger took the role, it was offered to JCVD and Seagal.
And they both wanted to be the hero. No one wanted to be the villain. That's what killed it.
And Jackie Chan was offered the Phoenix role, but Jackie Chan's so weird with his stuff. He can't be the bad guy. He feels Chinese audiences would never accept it. So you'll never see Jackie Chan as the bad guy.
Right.
But I love it. Jackie Chan could have been fun, but he could never be the bad guy. Who's afraid of Jackie Chan? You want to take him home and give him a hug. He's so awesome.
That is true.
So I cannot see him as a bad guy.
No, he's got a huggable quality.
He does have a huggable quality. I love Jackie Chan.
He's great.
He should do more stuff.
He's long in the tooth.
Jackie Chan? Well, he's long in the tooth. Yeah. They're all long in the tooth.
That is true. That is true.
Did he ever make it to any of the Expendables?
No, he didn't. Jet Li was in the Expendables.
Well, I like Jet Li, but it would be kind of fun to throw a little Jackie Chan in there for Flavor Flav.
You know what's interesting is Jet Li did play villains when he came to America.
Yeah.
And he does have a kind of a scary quality. In Lethal Weapon 4, which is not a great movie, he is like terrifying.
Villain. Jet Li can go either way.
Yeah,
he can go either way. But I think for Jackie Chan, he was always just so established as kind of like the underdog, the good guy. Bad people come and do things to him, and he shows them. But he's always the good guy.
And his movies always have like kind of a campy aspect to it. There's always kind of like comedy that he tries to...
The Drunken Master.
Of course, classic.
A classic. Plus, Rumble in the Bronx. I mean, come on.
I love Rumble in the Bronx. I'm not going to lie.
But all the Rush Hour stuff, that was bullshit.
Yeah.
He needs to be the main character, really.
I agree. He's a peacock. You got to let him fly.
You got to let him fly. He is no one's sidekick. So I think he's always lesser Chan when he's a sidekick.
I agree. We're going off on tangents here. Okay, so no more highlights. So we're going to go right to behind the scenes.
All right, lay it on me.
There's a bunch, obviously. Snipes is actually an accomplished black belt in real life, so he had to slow down his moves.
He was making those kicks, and they were high. I was like, I wasn't sure if he did it for the movie or if he already had that in his back pocket, but you can tell.
Oh yeah, he's very athletic. He's got those martial arts skills. He got the crazy Simon Phoenix haircut just for this movie, and he hated it so much that when the movie was done filming, he shaved his head.
I bleached my son's hair like that once with a mohawk. He didn't like that.
Well, ironically, his haircut inspired Dennis Rodman in the NBA. And
no.
And literally for the rest of his career, another 5 or 6 years, he had crazy hair inspired by Demolition Man. So there you go.
Well, it wasn't just crazy hair. I think it was just crazy.
He's still crazy. Fred Decker, who wrote Night of the Creeps, did uncredited rewrites on this script.
Oh Lord!
And he's the one who suggested you have to show post-apocalyptic 1996 before you go to the deep future. He says, if you don't show Kansas, Oz isn't that special. So you got to show the hellhole first before you go to the future. So that's kind of interesting. To
make sense of why the world is the way it is. That makes sense.
Yeah. So Stallone described the cryogenic freezing scene as probably the worst 5 hours I've ever had on the movie set. I was terrified.
Oh my God.
Well, because he's in like this little clear container that they're filling up with like this viscous liquid.
And he's buck naked in the bare bottom boys.
No question. Very upset. If you pause it just right, you may see more than you hope to see. Let me just put it that way.
I thought I saw like a couple of prunes in there. I don't know.
I definitely thought I saw some kibbles and bits. That's all I'm saying. Originally, Sandra Bullock is going to be played, or her character is going to be played by Lori Petty, but they replaced her after a few days of filming.
And Lori Petty is Tank Girl, right?
She's Tank Girl. She was a bigger star at the time. She had been in Point Break. She had been in a few other things. But yeah, later she did Tank Girl. So
yeah, those are two entirely different characters.
Oh, a League of Their Own. She was definitely higher profile than Sandra Bullock at that time.
But who did she piss off to get fired on the second day?
That's the question, right? Oh. Do you know where the title of the movie comes from?
Because he blows everything up?
It's actually a Police song.
Yeah, that Police song, that Sting singing the thing. So did the song come first?
Yes, originally it was written by Sting and actually performed by Grace Jones originally back in the early 80s.
Ah.
And then the Police actually recorded it like a year or so later. But it was not a song I'd ever heard of before.
Never. And where's Grace Jones now? Now I'm curious about Grace Jones.
She's out and about, doing her thing. Living her life.
Living La Vida Loca.
Living La Vida. Dennis Leary's part was rewritten after he was cast because, people who don't remember, Dennis Leary was like kind of a big ranting comedian. He's on MTV all the time.
Yeah.
So when he got the part, they basically said, we have to have at least one crazy rant of Dennis Leary in this. Like, insert Dennis Leary rant here is what it said in the script, essentially. Right. So he has that long scene. He's like, the future's a 40-year-old virgin covered in Jell-O singing I'm an Oscar Mayer wiener. Or some bizarre. It's madness. Madness.
Grace Jones is 72 years old.
It's been a long road for old Grace Jones.
It's been a long time. No, she's badass though. I'd like to see her now. See what she looks like now.
Well, she was a model and a singer before she was an actress.
Absolutely.
When I think of Grace Jones, I think of A View to a Kill, where she played the evil henchman. But I also think of Boomerang, Jersey Boomerang. She played Strong J.
Never.
Got to check that out.
Never.
She's dynamite in that. Let's see. Adrienne Barbeau was the computer's voice in the police station.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that at all.
She also voiced the computer in The Thing in 1982. So there you go. Uncredited. Good stuff. I think that's about it. Should we talk about the cast?
The director didn't do much. He just does like videos for those high definition TVs now, pretty much.
I think Stallone, the director's name is like Marco Brambilla or something like that.
Yeah. Italian from Canada.
Stallone very rarely works with like a high profile director because really he's the director.
Right. He wants to roll over it.
Well, and that's the thing. If you look at his credits, Stallone directed a lot of movies. He even directed things that he wasn't in. He directed Staying Alive with John Travolta, for God's sake.
I've never seen that, and I'm proud to say that.
You should check it out. It's hilarious. Okay, we got to talk about that for a second. In Saturday Night Fever, it was about kind of a young slacker who every Saturday would go off and dance all night, right? And the problems and tribulations with that.
Oh, yeah.
Take that character 5-6 years later. Now that same slacker who's working at the paint store is now like, actually, my dream all along was to dance on Broadway. And that's Staying Alive.
I just remember him being ripped and oiled.
Yes. That's what it is. Because Stallone was directing it. So he's like, Travolta, you're great. We need you to be more ripped and more oiled, like I am.
More oil.
Movie.
Oh my God! It's
Get
like
the oil.
You go to those male reviews and stuff. Their banana hammocks. Oh,
banana hammocks. Okay.
Grace Jones is still looking good, man. It's still exotic as hell at 72.
Grace Jones. She always frightened me, frankly. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, she's going to eat your liver with fava beans at a nice Chianti for damn sure.
Most of the cast we don't really need to go deep into. Obviously, Stallone was John Spartan. Wesley Snipes was Simon Phoenix. Sandra Bullock was Lenina Huxley. Nigel Hawthorne played Dr. Raymond Cocteau. He's a British actor.
He was in everything that was British at the time.
His number one IMDb thing, he played George III in The Madness of King George.
Absolutely. I think he was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yep. Benjamin Bratt played Alfredo Garcia.
Yes.
He went on to be in Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock a few years after this.
Oh, there was some sparks and poppings, but he had such a non-role in this.
He did, but he was good. What he did was entertaining to me because he was so kind of weak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He was the weak straight man.
Right. Well, she's like, don't you wish that something would happen? Life is so boring as police officers. And his response is like, goodness, no. I thought he was good. Didn't have much to do, but what he did, I thought was entertaining.
Right. All right.
Chief George Earl was played by Bob Gunton, who you must know because he was the warden from Shawshank. Was his big claim to fame prior to this. He normally has hair.
You're right. He's normally not Otto Preminger.
Yes. Glenn Shattuck's associate Bob, he's the guy you were talking about. He was in Beetlejuice. He was in Heathers. Dennis Leary. Yeah. Rob Schneider. Jesse Ventura. The movie, when they finished filming it, was 2.5 hours long.
No.
Studio said, no way.
Damn much.
They said, no can do. You
got
to go
an hour.
So that's why Jesse Ventura was basically like, went from, a real role to a cameo with no lines.
Do you know what his real role was?
He was just one of the thugs that worked with Simon Phoenix. He wasn't like
so they just
Shakespeare.
had brother. Was it Othello or something?
It was not Othello.
So the thugs had bigger roles. Like
Well,
they actually went and did stuff instead of just sitting around a conference room table for 5 minutes.
There was that, but there's also a subplot about Spartan's daughter. That they found her and she was living among the scraps. Because they talked about how in the 36 years, his wife had died in an earthquake. And he had a daughter, but we don't know what happened to her.
How old is she? We don't know how old she is.
Well, she's about...
She could be like 60 years old.
Well, no. One of the things is it turned out she was about the same age as Sandra Bullock, and test audiences didn't like that he had a daughter the same age as the girl that he was making out with at the end of the film. So that was part of it.
The best bet would have been they made out there was no magic, and he realized he just stuck his tongue into his daughter's mouth.
That Sandra Bullock was his daughter. That should have been... That would have been a good one. That would have been a V.C. Andrews kind of thing. But if you watch, they edited just right. When there's the big firefight with Simon Phoenix and the bad guys shooting up like the scraps, trying to get at him, there's a scene where Stallone is like kind of shielding the body of some woman, a random woman with like brown hair, if you go back and watch. And they cut to him like multiple times, kind of pushing her aside. Just looks like he's defending a rando from getting shot. That's his daughter. That's his daughter who, again, they cut that whole subplot. They the battle at the end where he's going through the cryogenics lab was supposed to be longer. Like you only see him like physically defeat 2 of the henchmen, and there were 5 of them. All of that got cut to make it, just under 2 hours. So
how about when they cut out some of that murder, death, kill stuff? Because that was the stupidest thing.
Well, they did it all off camera.
Murder, death, kill. Murder, death, kill.
Well, that was the thing. It's like the moment Simon Phoenix escapes, anybody who he comes across, dead. Murders him with his bare hands. And that's the thing. It's like code 187, because everybody has like these chips in their hands that like register all their movement, all their life signs. So if somebody dies, instantly in the police station, you get that signal. 187. And they don't know what a 187 is. They have to look it up. Because they haven't had a murder in 16 years. And they also...
I find that hard to believe.
Well, because they live in a utopian society, evidently.
Yeah. But you know what screws up utopian societies is they're full of people.
Well, and Soylent Green is made out of people. So there you go.
That's right. It's people.
That's all you need to know. There's a scene where they talk about how they don't really use money anymore. They use credits, and you keep track of your credits with that chip in your hand. So John Spartan...
Jeff Bezos is working on that. Don't you worry.
Ain't no lie. And he says, so you wouldn't... John Spartan talks about how Simon Phoenix couldn't really rob anybody unless he rips off their hand. Let's hope he doesn't figure that out. That was another little joke. Thank you.
Well, he popped an eye out, by the way.
He did. He had no qualms about that. So that's good to know. That's about it for the cast. Do you have any other comments about the cast before we move on?
I got that it was a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that feels about right.
60% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it is much better than that.
I had to pay $2.99 from Jeff Bezos charged me to look at his utopian plan. Bastard.
I gave it 8 out of 10 remarkably small Taco Bell dishes, is what I thought. So,
I'm giving it 2 out of 5 murder, death, kills.
Whoa!
It's just so freaking hokey.
It
2
is.
murder, death, kills. It's
2
too
out of
hokey
5
for me.
It
2
is.
out of 5 murder, death, kills.
I think it's hilarious. Now, I will definitely say a lot of these movies that I like from the 80s have great setups, great middles, and then the ends where they all just kind of go off the rails, where it isn't nearly as interesting.
Fact.
It's a sad situation. And that, Demolition Man sadly falls victim to that as well, in my opinion. The end isn't nearly as interesting as kind of the setup of the society. The moment you get used to that it's just like, okay, not as interesting. I would still recommend it. I think if you don't mind your children hearing F-bombs every 5 minutes, it's fun for the whole family.
They're already hearing it at school.
They're hearing it from me, probably. So I learned it from watching you.
I had one tiny thing that I forgot to say. In international releases, where they don't have Taco Bells, they switched it to Pizza Hut.
Right.
But they did that digitally, and then they had to go, dub over their voices. But most of the time they forgot. So even though they're at Pizza Hut, it'll say vaguely Taco Bell somewhere off in the distance.
Well, it's interesting that Pizza Hut is a much bigger thing worldwide than Taco Bell.
And I think
I have no idea.
They're all owned by the same conglomerate of garbage. So
yeah, makes sense. Sad. Any last thoughts before we move on with our lives?
I've already forgotten this whole movie.
So there you have it. Thank you very much for joining us. Go to our page on Facebook at the Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcast, Email us at the Podcast That Wouldn't Die at Gmail. Like, share, subscribe, do what you do. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts. Aaron, you're on Twitter. What's the word?
Cult of Aaron, rock and roll babies. Hey. I gotta go back to work in like a month and a half. People need to go home. Stop wandering around hacking on everybody. Quit posting that you developed asthma from wearing your mask. You're a liar.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
that's madness. So thank you very much, and be well. Do you know where I got be well from, by the way?
Star Trek?
Demolition Man.
Oh my God. Live long and prosper.